Some foods are so dangerous, so controversial, or so unethical that entire countries have made them illegal, from a cheese full of living maggots to a fish that kills you instantly. King Henry I of England was one of the most powerful monarchs of medieval Europe. He died in Normandy after a single meal of lampreys, a type of jawless, eel-like fish that he loved obsessively. His doctors had repeatedly forbidden him from eating lampreys due to their richness. The king ignored them. After a feast of his beloved fish, he developed violent food poisoning and died within days, plunging England into 19 years of civil war. The English monarchy still ceremonially eats lamprey pie at coronations. Queen Elizabeth II was served one in 1953. Centuries after killing a king, lampreys remain a symbol of royal power in Britain. Adolf Frederick was the King of Sweden, known more for his cheerful appetite than for his political accomplishments. On February 12, 1771, he sat down for the largest meal of his life, and his last. His final meal included lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, smoked herring, champagne, and a dessert of 14 servings of his favorite hot cream-filled buns called semla. He died of severe digestive failure that same night. In Sweden, Adolf Fredrik is officially remembered as the king who ate himself to death. Semla buns are still sold in his memory every February before Lent, and Swedes still joke about the king's sweet tooth. Tycho Brahe was the most famous astronomer of the 16th century, the man whose star observations led to the laws of planetary motion. He was also the wealthiest scientist alive, with a private island and a metal nose. At a royal banquet in Prague in 1601, Brahe refused to leave the table to relieve himself, believing it would be the height of rudeness. He held it in for hours. His bladder ruptured, and he died of urinary infection 11 days later. When his body was exhumed in 2010, scientists found that his cause of death may have actually been mercury poisoning, possibly self-administered, or by his rival Johannes Kepler. The bladder story may be a 400-year-old cover-up. Sherwood Anderson was one of the most influential American writers of the 20th century, the man who mentored Hemingway and Faulkner. He died in the most ordinary way imaginable. While drinking a martini on a cruise ship to South America in 1941, Anderson accidentally swallowed the toothpick from his olive. The splinter punctured his intestine, causing peritonitis. He died 4 days later. Anderson's death changed cocktail service forever. After 1941, many American bars stopped using sharp wooden picks in cocktails, replacing them with plastic swords or flexible plastic sticks. One writer's olive changed bar culture. Tennessee Williams was the playwright behind A Streetcar Named Desire and The Glass Menagerie. He won 2 Pulitzer Prizes and is considered one of the greatest American dramatists of the 20th century. He was found dead at the Hotel Élysée in New York in February 1983. The official cause of death was choking on the plastic cap of an eye drop bottle. He often unscrewed caps with his teeth while taking medication. Forensic reanalysis decades later suggested the choking story may have been a cover for a drug overdose. Either way, the most decorated American playwright was killed by an object smaller than a coin, a death he himself might have written into a tragic play. Pope Clement VII was the head of the Catholic Church during one of its most turbulent eras, the sack of Rome, the rise of Lutheranism, and Henry VIII's divorce from Catherine of Aragon. He died in September 1534 after eating a mushroom dish. His final meal contained Amanita phalloides, the death-cap mushroom, the deadliest fungus on Earth. It contains amatoxin, which destroys the liver over the course of several days. The Pope died slowly and painfully. The death-cap mushroom is responsible for over 90% of all fatal mushroom poisonings worldwide. A single cap contains enough toxin to kill an adult. And it tastes pleasant. Survivors say it is one of the best-tasting mushrooms they ever ate. Claudius was the 4th Roman emperor, conqueror of Britain, and one of the most successful rulers in Roman history. He died on October 13, 54 AD, at the dinner table of his own palace. Ancient historians agreed he was poisoned with a dish of mushrooms by his 4th wife, Agrippina the Younger. She wanted her son Nero to inherit the throne, and Claudius was in her way. The dish had been his absolute favorite. After Claudius's death, Nero became emperor at age 16. He went on to become one of the most notorious tyrants in history, burning Rome, killing his own mother Agrippina, and reportedly fiddling while the empire collapsed. The poisoning of one man rewrote Roman history. King John of England signed the Magna Carta, the document that limited royal power and gave birth to modern constitutional law. He died in October 1216 while on military campaign after a feast of unripe peaches and new cider. Chronicles describe his death as caused by a surfeit of peaches and new ale. The unripe fruit combined with freshly fermented alcohol caused severe dysentery, and the king died within days, weakened and feverish. Some historians believe John was actually poisoned by his own monks at Swineshead Abbey. Either way, his death within months of signing the Magna Carta cemented the document's power and changed Western government forever. Frederick Augustus II was the king of Saxony in the 19th century, an art lover and one of the most popular monarchs in German history. He died not in battle but at dinner. While dining at his summer palace in 1854, the king choked on a small bone from a trout he was eating. Royal physicians could not dislodge it. He suffocated at the dinner table in front of his entire court. His death sparked one of Europe's first major movements for food safety laws. By 1860, German regulations required all royal fish to be deboned before serving, a rule still in effect in some palace kitchens today. Wu Zetian was the only female emperor in Chinese history, a brilliant, ruthless ruler who held absolute power for over half a century. In her final years, she became obsessed with eternal life. She regularly drank a Taoist elixir of immortality made from mercury, lead, sulfur, and gold dust. Centuries later, science would show that mercury slowly poisons the brain and kidneys. The empress died at 81 after years of cognitive decline. Wu Zetian was just one of dozens of Chinese emperors killed by mercury-based elixirs. The Qin emperor, who unified China, died at age 49 from drinking liquid mercury, believing it would grant him eternal life. The cure for death killed more emperors than any war. Bandō Mitsugorō VIII was one of the most legendary actors in Japanese kabuki theater, declared a living national treasure by the Japanese government in 1973. He died less than 2 years later at a sushi restaurant in Kyoto. He ordered 4 servings of Fugu kimo, pufferfish liver, and boasted he was immune to its tetrodotoxin. The poison is 1,200 times deadlier than cyanide. Within 7 hours of the meal, he was dead. After his death, Japan made it illegal for any restaurant, even licensed Fugu chefs, to serve pufferfish liver under any circumstances. The dish that killed the most decorated actor in Japan was banned the same year as his funeral. St. Lawrence was a Roman deacon who refused to surrender the wealth of the church to Emperor Valerian. He was sentenced to one of the cruelest executions ever devised, to be roasted alive on a gridiron. On August 10, 258 AD, Lawrence was placed on a metal grill over hot coals. According to legend, halfway through his death, he calmly said to his executioners, "Turn me over, I am done on this side." He became a saint within a generation. St. Lawrence is now the patron saint of cooks, chefs, and butchers worldwide. Restaurant kitchens across Europe and Latin America still display his image. The man cooked to death became the official patron of cooking itself. George Plantagenet, Duke of Clarence, was the brother of King Edward IV of England and one of the most treacherous nobles of the Wars of the Roses. He was executed in private inside the Tower of London in 1478. According to multiple contemporary accounts, Clarence was allowed to choose his method of execution. He chose to be drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine, one of the sweetest and most expensive wines of the era. He literally died inside a barrel of his favorite drink. Shakespeare dramatized this exact scene in Richard III, making it one of the most famous deaths in English literature. To this day, dark sweet wine is sometimes nicknamed Clarence's choice in British wine circles. Allan Pinkerton was the founder of the most famous detective agency in American history, the Pinkertons. He invented the modern private investigator, foiled an assassination attempt on Abraham Lincoln, and ran the Union Intelligence Service during the Civil War. In 1884, he slipped on a Chicago sidewalk and bit his own tongue. The wound became infected and caused gangrene. Antibiotics didn't exist. The man who once ran America's spy network was killed by a sidewalk and his own teeth. Pinkerton's slogan was, "We never sleep," and his agency famously used an open eye logo, which gave rise to the term Private Eye. The greatest detective in American history was killed by an injury smaller than a paper cut. Tutankhamun was the boy pharaoh of ancient Egypt who took the throne at age 9 and died at 19. His tomb, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, contained over 5,000 artifacts, including 36 jars of food preserved for the afterlife. Modern CT scans of his mummy reveal a broken leg and traces of malaria, but some Egyptologists believe his death was accelerated by poisoned figs and wine, allegedly given to him by his vizier A, who took the throne immediately after his death. Inside Tutankhamen's tomb were also dozens of food offerings: bread, dates, wine, and dried meats. The boy pharaoh would have been served these for eternity. The mystery of what killed him remains the most studied food-related death in archaeology.